Okay, hi, I am Ento Budiarjo and welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every week on Monday afternoon as we try and figure out the future for smarter buildings. So in case you're wondering who we are listed on mondaylive.org, so head over there and find that out. And also just point out the views expressed here in this hour are personal, not of any company or organization. Keep that in mind and let's have an interactive session as we normally do on the Zoom chat. So looking forward to that. And this slide deck is also available on mondaylive.org if you want anything from it. So this being April, this is the last Monday in April, and we've been talking about AI across the smarter stack. And it's been a very interesting conversation. And so today, the agenda for today is we'll have our normal news and trends chit chat, and then we'll talk about AI across the stack and focusing on the middle layers, the middle four layers that we haven't really focused on, and then hopefully to have some discussion. So looking forward to that. Before I hand it over to Ken, just to note that this is the six-year anniversary of Monday Live. The first one being on April 27th, which is this day in 2020. So I thought I'd pause here and just let the group sort of reflect on what life was back then and the fact that it's been 6 years and we've made a lot of progress, and yet we still have to make a lot more progress. What's people's thoughts on the past 6 years? Rick?
I have to go first. I wasn't even part of this 6 years ago.
That's true. That is true.
I was barely born 6 years ago.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
if it keeps accelerating at this pace, I'm going to lose it.
yeah. But I do remember when it started, and it just seemed like it was such a well. Again, COVID had also just started, and the idea of having um, a think tank that had time on its hands because nobody was going into offices, but it seemed like a really great thing to me, and I was eager to try and attend as many sessions as possible because it did seem like there was a an opportunity to apply new technology, maybe new thinking, and maybe both to what the challenges of buildings were, and then everybody was not using any buildings, so it gave an opportunity to sort of start from scratch in the thinking, and that was I kind of like that, and so way back then it had a great seemed like a great purpose, and sure was impressive to see the people that were gathering around to be part of it also. So those are my initial thoughts.
Cool. Jim, what's your reflections on 6 years?
I remember you calling me up, uh, saying that we should start this. And Anto and I had been working on something called the New Deal blog before, and this idea came up, and I thought it would be a good idea. And but if I look back over 6 years, the world has changed enormously in that period of time. Our industry maybe fundamentally hasn't changed that much, but the world around it is changing so quickly now that it's certainly going to have a spillover onto what we do. So I'm looking forward to the next 6 years.
I too, if I last. Steve, what's your recollections of?
Well, it's we've evolved a lot from the beginnings. So, I mean, this was started as a way to deal with the challenges around COVID, and then once we determined that that was no longer really a pressing issue, let's call it that, we then shifted into how do we get get our industry to move forward and really solve the continuing issues around, say, interoperability. Okay. And and I think that next phase was led to things like the Smarter Stack and Division 2525 documentation, or the document that we produced. And those were all kind of useful things we could do right immediately. Um, but to Jim's point, while all that was happening, uh, outside of us, the AI revolution was beginning to gain steam, and it has had a powerful impact, certainly in te as a technology arena uh, in general, and with some of our new members, particularly Keith's business, and I would say Ano's, uh, there we're already seeing the impact of it in terms of adoption, right? And so that was not the case 6 years ago. That was barely the case 3 years ago. So what has that resulted in? Well, what are we talking about right now? AI, right? We are incredibly focused on that one topic as a major driver of where this industry is going and where perhaps it needs to go. Um, so I think in those terms, we've had a major shift. And because I also want to point out that in the early days, a lot of our focus was really, I would say, around our channel partners, around the channels, the systems integrators, distributors, to a certain degree end users, but engineering firms, okay? How things were being put together and sold and purchased at that level in 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 our industry. And that's again was, hey, what can we do to better communicate what these systems are capable of, how they should be put together? Again, the Division 2525, the Smarter Stack, all that was around trying to help the community of buyers and sellers and provide, suppliers do a better job of making this technology usable and getting the best value out of it. And certainly, I think in the last 2 years, we have shifted significantly to almost a pure technology discussion where we're really emphasizing the things that our our industry needs to be doing to take the next step in its evolution. And whether that be AI, be, better hardware, uh, new types of communication, particularly cloud computing. Um, just if you look at it, that's where our discussions have landed over the last 2 years, as best evidenced by what Rick Justice is now doing with regard to C4SB and the Linux Foundation, right? So the whole nature of our conversations has evolved significantly away from this focus around all the way the channel providers are operating in the industry to one where our predominant conversations are around technology. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just observing it as what we've done. And um, last week, I was attending a vendor day for one of ISMA's customers, and the luncheon guest speaker was an individual that represented a company called bestresults.ai. Okay? And they're a training organization that teaches companies of all sorts how to take AI and apply it successfully in their organizations. And it was what was very interesting is I sat in on the conversation and the speaker then started asking simple questions to the audience. How many of you are out there using AI in some fashion? And there was maybe 100 people in the audience, and maybe three people raised their hand. These are all systems integrators and distributors, but primarily systems integrators and end users. Okay. So it was very clear after a few qualifying questions of that sort that our industry still has a long way to go. And even though we're spending a lot of time talking about it and trying to enable it, the awareness of AI, what it is, how it is to be used, what the benefits are, and looking for those early adopters, there's a lot of work ahead of. There's a lot to be done
Mhm.
in our industry. So I
Yeah.
think our efforts here are worthwhile, but clearly there's a long way to go to kind of re-engage the channel side of the discussions that we had, 2, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and bring them into this conversation, I think, in a much more meaningful way, because it's here. And
Mhm.
what are we doing to help get it going and get it adopted? Not just talking about the bits and bytes, if you will, of making it happen, but getting people to start using it, right?
Yep.
So,
Thanks, Steve.
yep.
3 out of 100, that's not good.
I had to laugh about our reconnection in April of 2020 because yeah, and I don't know if you recall it, but I had reached out to you. I left Phoenix March 31st, 2020, and I was getting highly recruited. I actually got recruited by Brainbox among other people.
Yeah.
Several of the control companies were trying to recruit me. I won't mention their names, but it was a couple of them. And then I also, to Anto, the reason we got back in touch was I was recruited by a company called Smartin Spaces out of Singapore. And last time I checked, you lived in Singapore and you have a lot of experience. So I reached out to you I just looked it up on April 13th, 2020, to ask you if you knew anything about Smartin because I was recruited to be their CTO. At the time, I wasn't so sure I wanted to start a seventh startup company at age 50. Like I didn't really want to do that. And so I was actually trying to look for a highly paid, field position as a CTO or something like that. And then so you text me back on LinkedIn on the 14th and you said, "Good to hear from you, Keith. Let's connect tomorrow." So we actually had a Teams meeting or Google Meets or something, and we met. And I remember the first thing you said, "Keith, I saw that you left Phoenix. What are you thinking about doing?" I said, "Well, hey, man, I don't know. I'm halfway thinking about starting a AI company." And you said, "Oh, well, how would that work?" And I started talking about using the gateways. And this is kind of hilarious. And I got to mention it. Anto goes, guys, he goes, "Still using those gateways, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, still using your standards, huh?" Like, it's like, "Yeah, you're still using the gateways." Like, "Yep." "You're still doing yours." So,
Although I think you're confusing Anno and myself a little bit in that story because I never lived in Singapore. That was Anno.
oh,
I
that,
did.
that was you.
Yeah.
That was you, Anto.
Mhm.
And then you
But I remember interacting back then.
Yeah. You said something about the gateways. I'm like, "Yep," I'm like, and I'm like, "You still into your standards?" And you were like, "Yep." And you invited me on April 19th to the inaugural Monday Live session. Not as a member, but just to attend it. You sent me
Right.
a link to it on the April 24th, 2020. And that's how we got back connected.
Cool. Yeah, great story. Tracy, how's your 6 years been?
It's interesting, kind of listening to what everyone else is saying. Um, I still remember when you reached out for that first call, as pandemic started and nobody knew what the hell was going to happen and go on. So for me, the reason for joining was to find out what everybody else is hearing and doing and thinking about the pandemic. And I mean, we were hard focused on that for quite a while,
Yeah,
as I think it
you're
was
right.
Steve mentioned, before we finally pivoted once that was sort of behind us and had an understanding of its impact to focus on, the age-old problem, the one that we've been trying to solve for 30 years now, in terms of standard interoperability kind of stuff. Um, but what I would say now, just even based on things that I've been exposed to, let's say in the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks, we are on the precipice of a pivot like we haven't seen in terms of its depth and impact since the pandemic started. And that is the AI stuff is moving or will have the ability to move way faster than I imagined even 60 days ago. And I would be the first to say, "Yo, AI is going to go really fast. Everything's moving really fast." I think it's going even faster than we realize. And, hopefully over the next few weeks, more of that will come to light here. But so this last month in particular, where we talked about the impact of AI, I would love to go back and start all over because I would say different things already just in that last month. That's how fast it's moving.
Yeah.
And the impact in particular, I know we touched on it a few times, but the impact on the humans in the loop, I think are the most significant impact here to this whole thing. And it's going to be interesting. Anna and I were talking about it, and the old thing about AI is not taking your job; it's the person who knows AI that's going to take your job. Man, we have some case studies that prove that like nobody's business at this point.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
yeah, I think the last 6 years have been great, and we've really laid a good foundation. We've as a group, I think, done a great job at pivoting with things going on at a macro level, especially in the industry and in the world. And I think there's another pivot that we're scratching all around the surface. But I mean, when was it Anthropic in their new security AI, cybersecurity AI tool? Somebody compared that to, nuclear war. It has the same impact as a nuclear arms race. And I hear that logically and can say, yeah, I agree. But now I'm really starting to understand AI's impact emotionally at a whole different level. And it's going to be huge. So I think there's a lot more AI discussion coming up in our future here, for sure.
Anna, how you reflect this? What's going on?
Um, Interesting. I think, one of the things that amazes me, surprises me, maybe doesn't surprise me, is that this team, right? And no offense to anyone, we're not the younger generation, and we're not. Sorry, we maybe you. But my point is that I'm actually amazed at how adapt and flexible and change we as a team, this group has done over the last 6 years, right? I mean, we're not a group of folks who are sitting on the porch yelling at the kids, "Get off my grass," right? We're like, no, let's get in with the grass with the kids, right? And we've adapted and changed every time something's come, right? The AI to me is, to Tracy's point, is the latest of that. And I'm sure there's more to come, as Tracy says, and it'll probably get more interesting. And we probably don't even know half of what's going to happen in the next 5 years. But as this team, what really I get the most joy out of these discussions is how, as a team, we adapt and change and modify. And it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I'm not doing that. That's just dumb. But we've embraced change at a rate. I mean, look how much we've embraced AI. The rate that AI has changed in the last
Yeah.
last several months. I've had a blast just being on the team. Just it keeps me, to be honest, it keeps my mind young. Let me put it that way.
No, not that I know I'll be really quick, but that Obix thread that we had over the weekend, like that it really made me think about the same exact thing, Anno. If you look at that group that was there,
Yeah.
that was us.
Right.
So we were the young whippersnappers, 30, 35 years ago doing all this stuff. And so to your point, it's like we always talk about passing the torch. And I think it's fantastic that we haven't passed the torch, man. We're still the innovators, we're still leading it. So it's great. That was a very nostalgic, great look back at that Obix meeting because it was pretty much the same group of people.
Yeah, for those that didn't see that, I managed to retrieve an old picture of
Oh no, really?
Keith, myself, and a few other. I can't remember who was on that picture, but this was in 30 years ago, 25 years ago, so we were looking pretty young,
Oh dear, don't show
relatively
that.
anyway. Anyway,
I do have
Ken,
one last quick comment. I'm going to post it and leave it. But to Steve's point, I agree with you, Steve, right? The adoption of AI. There's a really great article from Lee Thomas, if you haven't read it, and came out the other day about why AI adoption strategy is a training program issue right now. That's why it's failing, right? It's not a technology thing. We're in the chasm jumping phase and stuff. So interesting article for those who want to have a read of it.
I don't want to
yeah,
make the same mistake I made when cell phones came out, by the way. I remember my wife first, I think I've told the story on here. My wife
yeah,
asked me for a cell phone, and I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You don't need a cell phone for crying out loud. There are
okay.
phones everywhere. I am not making that mistake with AI. That's
Ken,
for sure.
could you just chime in with your words, and then I'll put your slide up.
Okay, great. Actually, I think the slide does a nice segue into it because it talks a little. It ends up talking about the impact the people on the screen have had on the industry. Um, but just my entry into the Monday Live, I think Anto gave me a call, and of course I'd always worked with Anto and helped him put on BuildCon and Connectivity Week, and we weren't allowed to travel, so it just seemed a logical thing to do. And it was just exactly we were putting those shows, the information that we used to talk in the halls when we would go to those events and to AHR were actually being discussed. And the good news was is often we had those discussions with people who had talked to these people but weren't these people. And we kind of kicked it up and we were talking directly to the people who had the thoughts and the ideas. So yeah, it was a great movement. And then I was honored to be allowed to basically publish the journey as well. And I think we've done a reasonable good job. And that starts really great with my slide here, because my first slide is, of course, this is the last roundup of across the stack, AI across the stack. And what I've done is I've linked that to all our automated buildings articles of that we have attempted to try to do the too long did not read summary of every one of those hours. And so we have quite a database of that 6 years. So that's that first, you click on that first AI across the stack, it leads to that. The next one is our summary of last week. Again, extremely well read. And I think a good summary came to some good conclusions. Below that, I was talking to some of my European friends, poking back and forth, and they came up with this. We're on our way to the Internet of Agents. And that certainly talks to the rapid evolution, and you kind of get your head around there as it used to be the Internet of Things. And originally was the Internet of Information and information of things, IoT, and then it became, now it's the Internet of Agents. And as we shift to agents, some of the stuff that we were always been wrestling with is now becoming cardinal. And it's a great discussion by some folks that have been basically in the IT space as long as I've been in the building automation space, and that says something. Below that, we basically have started to do our too long did not reads for the AHR, because we had 16 hours of video there. This is the one on security. Thought it's good. And again, that the AHR leads back to ours, and we're starting to work our way through getting all of those summaries done so you can quickly take a look at that. And the reason we're doing that is that we're now starting to put together our planning for AHR Chicago. And this is how long we have to start thinking about it. And I kind of scared the hell out of a few people in the industry when I started asking that question. So what are you bringing to Chicago? And it's like, my mind's so far in AI and everything else that's going on, I completely forgot that is happening, and that certainly has always been a march point for us to get some stuff together. So I think what your story is that's where you want to take it. Let's go over to the other side of the screen. Smart Buildings is on in London in October. We are a media sponsor of that event, and quite a few of our sponsors appear there as well. I think it's an amazing cross-pollination, global cross-pollination. While we're talking about global cross-pollinations, the Australian show is on right now, and it's in Melbourne, so that's just of note as well. Below that, we did a post with our contributing editor, Paul Yerlich. Paul and I have been together ever since, my joke is since he got off the train. But what he's doing here now is he's got this new ASHRAE standard for 231 approved, and he's basically got his post on that. That led me to go back with my history with Paul, and my history with Paul is that Paul was also an instigator in the OBEX movement. And I think the OBEX, in my recollection of the OBEX movement, is that it started in a boardroom in a tall building in Chicago when we actually started the formation of OBEX. And I was actually at that meeting, and in the early 2000s. And I was pleased when I asked Gemini to tell me what it thought of OBEX, and it came back very positive as saying it was like the OG of the duocracy way back when. And then Keith chimed in and said that he was there in the beginning, and also he still uses it for some of those old antiquated systems he runs into, and it works fine. So I think the message there is these standards we're working on are incredibly useful and incredibly important. But the other scary thing is it used to take, this is a 20-year plus standard, and still existing. We're in this situation that everything's happening faster, but by the same token, it does take a long time to get these changes made. Okay, back to the one below that, Kimon did this post about asset leadership networks, and they're off to Washington, and he's saying this is an event we should take a look at because there's a lot going on there that we're trying to get our message into a political camp. So I think that's good. And then the final one, which I think is good news for us all, is the HVAC control market is expected to grow steadily, and it looks like it's going to double from 17 billion to 33 billion by 2034. And I don't know much about anything, but I can believe that is the truth. It's actually done by somebody that writes articles, so I'm not sure of all the validity of it, but it's just amazing, and we are obviously in the right industry. Oh, the other one I didn't mention, and maybe back on the when we were talking about the Internet of Agents, I started to think a little bit more about why are agents so amazing to us. And I think part of the reason that agents are so amazing to us is that we all have these incredible databases that are typically almost our thumbprints. And our databases are unlike other databases in the fact that they're dynamic and that they're growing. And usually they're quite under our control. And basically what happens is when we invite them in and point them at our databases, together we can do incredible things that even surprise us. And I think what that sort of points out is that we have to do a little bit more thinking about how we control our incredibly valuable dynamic databases. And I think so I've got an article about that. Maybe we can chat a little bit more about that in the meeting today. Back to you, Anto.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. We do need to move on here. Rick, update from you.
Sure. And when Anno talked about we're not just the old the old guard or the old guy saying, "Get off my grass." I made me think of this chart. This is where the kids are playing on the
There
grass,
you
and
go.
we're there we go, and we're encouraging them, and we're participating as well, is in these working groups, and I'm going to talk about one of them in just a second. But it's really interesting as I look at the list of the people that are leading some of these working groups or interest groups. The average age is the age of probably our kids, but which is great. The names of the people are also new to sort of the not just the industry, but to some of these conversations, and I'm looking forward to getting some of these people more kind of cross-pollinated with some of the Monday Live efforts. But there's a lot going on, is what I wanted to get at, and one of the ones that I want to bring a little bit of attention to is the Open Controls Interest Group. It's actually just in black and white. We just created a logo for it. So next week there will be a logo that shows up for the Open Controls Interest Group. And it is, we're calling it an interest group rather than a working group. We talked about the kind of the little bit of difference last week. But one of the key groups is actually going to be building off of that 231 sequences that Ken was talking about, that Paul Ehrlich was a big part of. So Paul Ehrlich is probably, I don't know, our age, but a lot of the people that are actually going to be picking up the torch of 231 and figuring out how to implement it are kind of a new era. So the Open Controls Working Group will not just have a new logo that we'll see next week, but we'll also start informing people that that group is meeting on Tuesdays at what time? Tuesdays at like 10 o'clock my time, or is it 11?
Yeah, 11 Eastern.
11 Eastern. The Open Controls Interest Group is meeting Tuesdays at 11 Eastern. Um, but it's an example of where an innovation that is from 231 from ASHRAE is going to be some more guide specs and more like almost a user guide as to how to implement, how to make the 231 sequences something that can be implemented today. So that's a little bit of the
Okay.
update. Oh, we are going to get the town hall invite out to a bunch of people, and we would ask that if you receive the invite and can pass it on to anybody else who might be interested, please do that.
Okay. Thank you, Rick. So this Global Asset Management Summit is going on right now. It's starting today for the next 4 days in Washington, D.C. So if you're near there, you can check it out. Here's the link there. You can find on the slide deck. Kimon is sort of has been working to prepare all of that, and Mike Bordenera and other people are sort of involved. But unfortunately, none of them are on this call. But Kimon did send me a couple of slides, this being one of them. What he's doing at DC as part of this set of sessions is to do one of his BIM storms, which is sort of a collaborative online thing that he does. He's been doing this ever since we were doing conferences, so he's been doing it for quite a long time. And in this particular one, what he's doing is he's focused on using, this is my understanding, and I may be incorrect, but basically using the PAE graph, the structure of the PAE that he's been talking about the last few weeks. And he's some other people, I think Pete Scanlon has been contributing to it by adding some information related to fire, and they're going to be focusing this BIM storm on the use of all of this information, BIM information, and all the other knowledge graph information as one of the sort of inputs to actually how to handle emergencies such as a fire emergency. So that's all I know. I haven't seen it, and I'm obviously not going to be there. This is another slide that he's provided me, Kimon, and that's all I know. So, Rick, do you know any more than what I just said? Or does anybody else?
No, what you're describing from a technical standpoint is absolutely what Kimon's pushing forward and getting more feedback and more involvement on is we do have real graphs that are growing, if you will, from based on mythical buildings, but also now based on actual building data coming from the PAE building. And we're trying to use sort of both the theoretical and the actual to get more people to join the effort and realize the value of the turtle file, which is in the middle of your screen there, and understand what a turtle file is, and understand how RDF changes how APIs are used, or just those different realizations that happen once you start participating and looking at what the different data sets are. So
Cool.
that's what I know.
All right. Thank you. I think we've all had our turn on this, so I think there's nothing else to,
Or quick,
unless,
and I'll make it really quick. We're talking about important use cases of AI, and in particular, and over the weekend I've been seeing this stuff from Kimon around as far as like fire and first responders. I wanted to point out that one of our sister companies is actually called Light, LYT.ai, and they actually do use AI to manage traffic control systems. So it's like wayfinding, and their tagline is "Light saves lives." So it's like light in traffic light. So they actually take control of these antiquated and proprietary. I mean, our president, John Majeski, said it's just amazing how much two of his portfolio companies have in common, because these are old SCADA systems, proprietary, and they've had to reverse engineer them and make all these, gateways to them. But yeah, it actually does wayfinding for emergency response vehicles, and they can improve the time, but they can make it twice as fast. They can cut the commute time in half.
Wow.
By taking control of the traffic control systems of various cities and municipalities. So talk about a very powerful meaning use of AI, that's actually saving lives.
yeah, that's good. Thank you, Keith. Okay, let's move on in the 20 minutes that we have left. We're talking about AI across the stack. I just got some refresher slides here. This is the smarter stack. In case this is new to you, the link is stack.mondaylife.org. You can see all about it. The first week we talked about maybe AI is really at the top, or maybe AI is everywhere. So these two are actually what AI thought the smarter stack related to it. So that's kind of interesting. And then we spent one of the weeks talking about how the information from the lower parts of the stack, which is the physical of the systems, gets used in the system. And this is Kimon talking about how at the AE building, we're using knowledge graphs basically to do this. And this is just one of the depictions that he was talking about. Last week, we talked about the upper layers, and that's really the purpose and operations. And I think we sort of said that the purpose hasn't really changed that much, because a hospital is still a hospital, but it may have AI, sort of other AI purposes in place, as it were. And the operation is obviously where a lot of the changes can actually, or a lot of impact from AI. So the question is the middle layers, and the middle layers are these four, which is the data layer here, and then the orchestration layer, and the app layer, and the delivery layer. So these are the four that we want to be talking about today. So with that, where should we start? Why don't we start with Obix? What was Obix doing? I know Obix is not AI, but Obix is effectively was a way to access data, right? Maybe Keith, you can speak to that.
Yeah, I'd say it was actually a little bit much more. I've always made the distinction between data. ODBC is a data access layer. Obix is a communication protocol. So there's a different type of higher level instance. So when you talk about integrating to a database versus a full-time two-way control real-time interface protocol, I call it a communication integration layer, which is a little bit higher layer.
So that's really in the exchange layer, which is the layer above it.
Well, true, but you can't command the database either. So this is M2M. So remember we touched on this before, like machine to machine. So I think when you automatically get constrained to the data layer, you just remove probably the most important functionality out of the equation. It's not a data layer. It's an integration layer to a real-time two-way communication process. It's telemetry. And that's the distinction. I don't like the word data because that denotes database. Dead end is dead. Standing still, not in transit, not active.
Anybody want to pick up on that?
Well, you know, where my position has been with AI and the data layer, I mean, things like Obix and Haystack, you could argue we invented those so that people can read the data that we're extracting and normalize it, right? So that people could understand what a VAV-04-XT-27 is. And we put context and relationships and knowledge and information into all of that weird name. But what I'm saying is AI, you know, we do today, we use AI to tag that up. But the real question is, I don't know why I'm tagging it up when I'm just passing it on to the next layer, which is more AI, and AI doesn't need it to be people readable. I think there's still a place for it because we still are in the world of explainability. You know, explain what you're doing, please. Show me how it's working. How do I know it's not hallucinating and all that sort of good stuff? So understanding the stuff it's working with is still, I think, relevant and important. There will be probably a time when it doesn't matter anymore. But I've even seen today, I mean, when we deal with a new IoT company who cares less for Haystack or Obix or any standard protocol, they just go, here's my API. I go, great. I let my Claude go after it and go, here, sort it out for me. And it goes out and sorts it out for me, right? And it doesn't really care about naming conventions and open standards. It says, oh, it's an API. I can understand it. I can write a test. I can create a test box. Does it all in the space of minutes when we used to take folks days to build.
So is the middle layers all basically collapsing into AI?
I think so, although the one I did want to focus on is the orchestration layer. I kind of wanted to see what Keith's thoughts or anyone else's thoughts in this area. I haven't seen a whole lot of AI apply to orchestration, and orchestration is a critical aspect of the things that we do. When you've got 1,000 gateways out there, right? 1,000 buildings and 1,000 gateways, knowing those things are working and getting the latest software updates and managing them and and all that level of orchestration, which is crucial for thousands of devices that we have in the field, not the sensors, but more the gateways. I haven't seen a whole lot of good, clever AI in that world. Have you come across anything, Keith or Tracy, in that space?
No, not really. I mean, and this kind of goes to my perspective on this. At one time, I used to think that I needed a whole like context around the gateways. But when you think about it, what would you remember the old days when you had print servers? So you had a bunch of or modem pools.
Yeah.
There wasn't a management console for the modem pool or for the printer pool. Like they just kind of worked. And so I'm actually backward and removing that layer, that governance and management of it. Like we just made this decision. It's like, well, we want to make a gateway console so we can keep track of all of our customers, thousands of gateways to your point. I mean, we do. And I'm like, no, they're stupid print drivers. I don't care about them. I mean, yeah, tell us when you're not working. Send us an alarm or an entry in a log.
The thing
So I agree with
I
that.
would,
Sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say the thing I would point out about orchestration is in cybersecurity, it's a requirement.
Yeah.
Track of all that stuff and monitor it. So in that context, I don't see it going away. And once again, in areas where AI, as it matures, is not mature enough yet, people are going to demand determinism of closed-ended solutions where stuff can be monitored. But I do agree with Anno's premise and Keith's about needing the context less. I would say one other thing, which is that as much as AI, and I agree with Tracy, I mean, week to week, I'm learning how fast things are rocketing along. But the underlying building stock that we deal with, the 5.5 million commercial buildings in this country, are already built. And the capital does not exist to deploy the modern technology to that stock at a deep level. So I do think it's going to be applied at the top level quite quickly.
That's a good point. I agree.
But I
Yeah.
think that the reason that we still need context is that this industry is all about synchro meshing very fast moving technologies with things that move on a 30-year time constant. And that's where this is going to get interesting for us as a group and uninteresting for a lot of people that are, in the fast moving IT AI world. They won't get it. It will become a huge barrier to entry for them in these spaces, industrial, any place where there's a capital that's required over a long time constant. There'll be an enormous barrier to entry for AI to enter or anyone else to enter because how do you get at it? And once you get at it, how do you affect change? Right?
Right.
It changes your entire business model. Like you just can't to that point. Like the main theme of we just had our team meeting earlier this morning, and it's like stop. We got to stop with the optimization stuff and the normalization and all doing all the things that people do. We're barely keeping ahead of the game here. We don't have time. This stuff is changing so damn fast. You're not going to be able to optimize it. You can barely keep ahead of it. And when you start doing that, time you start trying to normalize it, optimize it, scale it, you're behind. You're falling behind. So let's do as much, let's optimize when we have to. Let's scale when we have to. It's almost you're running a business in real time on demand. And I think it's never been like this before. In the history of the world, it's never been like this where something is changing so friggin' fast that you can barely keep up with it.
Yes.
I agree. A couple things to chime in. So historically, one of the things, excuse me, that we noticed as we started kind of getting out and working with more and more end users in that small, medium-sized building world is there was a gap. There was a bimodal sort of distribution between there are companies and people who knew hardware, and there are companies and people who knew software, and putting those two together, not many companies or people knew how to, and that goes to the orchestration layer, right? But I think Anton, your chart that you just had up, I think a bunch of those central layers are getting compressed or pierced left and right. And to Keith's point, I always talk about the technology treadmill with my team and how it's just moving and changing all the time. Somebody jumped on that treadmill and cranked it up to 12. That's how fast things are moving now. I mean, we feel like we're in an absolute all-out sprint, no marathon, none of that. It's just, holy crap, if we don't move fast, we're just going to be behind everybody and everything at this point. And things like that orchestration becomes an exercise where, anyone on the screen could sit down for 5 minutes and provide all the context about pretty much any building that they've implemented, right? It's a restaurant. It's got RTUs. It's got walk-in refrigeration. Here's the time series data for the space temperature. Here's the time series data for the set point. And AI has now learned it. And it's one and done. And now every RTU it encounters, and it already knows a lot of this just by looking at the data, you barely have to tell it. If you say it's an RTU, it's expecting already, supply air temp, return air temp, set point, compressor status, fan status. It already knows that. We don't even need to tell it that anymore. So we're moving, and I like that we're moving to, standard contextual information. But, back to Jim's point, the 5.5 million buildings aren't going to change their systems, and they'll all be online before we get done standardizing things. I can almost guarantee that.
So
Because somebody will figure out what and how to expose just the data they need, and away it goes at that point.
So guys, listening to you, and because three of you in particular, Keith, Otto, well, four of you, Jim and Tracy, you guys are living and using AI daily in your companies, right?
Yes.
So would it are we not thinking perhaps in terms of adding AI capabilities to the IBB as a potential answer to what Jim you were talking about? Because the IBB was the way to kind of the next generation of getting an appliance, if you will, that could talk to the existing data set, or not data set, but the existing 5 point something million buildings out there, because it would know how to do that, right? But it didn't necessarily have the hooks, if you will, for AI smarts and AI evolution, right? So,
I'm calling it AI ready, Steve.
right, yeah, right. Make it so. Is that possibly a direction we ought to be thinking about how to, get from A to B or A to Z, right? Is focus on adding some functionality in the IBB that's specific to this AI learning curve, because instead of trying to find AI in every silo and every device that's out there, to your point, Jim, it's not going to that might work for brand new projects, but it sure as hell isn't going to work for the 5 million buildings that are already out there. So how do you put a device buy one device in a building that essentially makes it AI ready, right? And I'm just thinking, it just occurred to me, maybe the IBB or the next version of the IBB needs to be smarter in that regard.
It's got to be malleable. I
Go
mean,
ahead. Go ahead, Keith.
got to be malleable. I mean, this thing has got to be, it's got to be changed. So it's got to be based in software. Not, I mean, we're already doing that. Like that's where we're moving. And we call it the ISS. It's the
Mhm.
interoperable software stack.
Right.
Is it on-prem?
It can be.
Yeah, but it
Right.
doesn't have to be, though,
Right.
necessarily.
And I'm
Yep.
not saying it has to be.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying that you got to have some piece of technology that can move quickly.
Yeah,
That's the point.
Yeah.
that's how
Right.
we're going to market right now.
I look at it as a big pie out there, and I think industry's general approach, anyone who's going after this, right? We're doing it in our segment. Keith's got a bunch of stuff that he's doing. Jim has his segment. We're looking for the big chunks that we can easily and quickly grab right now today, right? And I guarantee it's going to be the 80-20 rule. We're going to get to 80% of these buildings really pretty easily and fast. And the last 20% is going to take a little bit more effort. And there are boxes already, for instance, that you can jump on to a backnet system and produce relatively standardized data. Keith has talked many times about all those gateways he's got. Yeah. Those are implementing at least part of the functionality of what we've been calling an IBB, right? That universal, hey, I know there's data there. We just got to push it out to Anno's AI readable format of some kind. And it doesn't care what format exactly, as long as you tell it.
Yeah.
And that's a one and done.
Steve, I think it's a fine idea, and I second everyone's point here, but the real problem is business model, right? And I think that's what we haven't invented yet. The premise that you can't get the data out of the building. Well, we know that Keith and I have lectured interminably that we've been able to get the data out of the building for a long time. But to get people to pay for the larger value propositions, that's still a major problem. So putting the technology in the IBB helps. The broader value propositions are sometimes harder to get at. I'm sorry.
I guess
No, you're fine. I think what I'm finding is, Jim, interestingly enough, because in my case and my company, and AI, that's all everybody above me talks, right? The only word that if it's not AI, ML, every second phrase, they're missing the beat. And the interesting part from that is, and as I sort of articulate our challenges and stuff, especially to your point, I think the actual energy from the upper layers that are driving AI at the upper layers are interestingly enough driving and finding people are starting to get, oh, you need more data from the building. I go, dude, I can do better if I had more data. And it's actually changing the discussion point a little bit. It's not moved a lot, don't get me wrong, right? I mean, the needles, when they start to drill down and look at the cost and blah, 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 and the cybersecurity, they back off a little bit. But it has started to change the discussion of the context of, yeah, for AI to work, we need data. And I go, you're right. And for you to get data, here's the things I need to do to make and go get that data. So I'm changing it, the conversation a little bit to be more AI driven benefits. And therefore, that's why you need the data. So
You had to subsidize that, by the way. So our model as it is now is it's $100 a month for our service, and it's $15 a month extra for the communication.
Yeah. So to your point, Keith, if I could, what I'm trying to get across, guys, is we have all accepted that to live our lives, we need to have one of these, right?
right.
What I'm saying, a building needs its equivalent of a smartphone.
Which is what we're demonstrating at the PA building. And I apologize for the fact that we haven't been able to show it yet, but they just installed the second one and we're installing two in Boston that are on-prem versions that can also all be hosted in this cloud. Now, there's a couple of things that are still not implemented in terms of the full stack of IBB features, but the fundamentals that you're talking about and the price point, Jim, to make it compelling is what we're demonstrating. And then to be able to open that up and it's on GitHub right now. So there is a GitHub repo for the PAE technology stack. And we're trying to show, starting with the price point, but showing the robust nature of the platform and it being open as a place to bring attention and drive change. And so, again, we've done a little bit of demonstration of it, but it's literally been over just the past couple of weeks that everything has gotten to the point where it could be in GitHub and it can be demonstrated, it can be priced out, and we can replicate it, and we're putting in, and the vendors, I shouldn't say we, as C4SB, we're trying to bring attention to it of what the capabilities are, and then start to get feedback. So yes, there's a way to standardize it and to drive the price point and to drive the capability and to use AI at the edge. So this is the middle part of the stack where we're talking about today. And yes, there is AI running on the edge to be able to do the things you could imagine would be at the edge.
That middle part of the stack we're talking about is going to get obliterated, I think, before you know it, because for a box that costs less than $500 and 11 cents a month per data point, you can get to your data and have AI running on it, and away you go, right? So
which is the Linux Foundation is famous for making things really, really affordable and to make them effectively go away in the stack.
And guess what that hardware is? Raspberry Pi running Linux, right? Yep.
Yeah, and that's, guys, what I'm saying. The Raspberry Pi or some variant of it, like Keith has done, I'm just saying that device, okay, is the equivalent of a smartphone that we all carry in our pockets.
Which
and every building should have one. And every building, Jim, can afford one. That's not going to be the obstacle, but it is going to be the enabler. So for Arnold, if I'm in your seat and I'm talking to the higher ups, guys, we got to put one of these in every building.
Yeah, I've already done that, Stephen. That's the path we're going. But it's kind of fascinating, right? I like the analogy of the iPhone. Who would have thunk, pick a time frame, 10, 15 years ago, everyone was willing to pay up $1,000 plus to put a phone, quote unquote, a phone in their pocket, right?
Right. Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yet everyone's been able to make that work.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I talk about the business model and the cost, I'm actually not talking about the connectivity or the transport or the ability to get data. I'm talking about the applications
What do you
I
do?
understand.
at the top. And
Yeah.
so that's, to me, the interesting problem, which I'm not sure how fast AI helps us solve that, because it's a complex problem with these assets that are old, that exist already, and the ecosystem that run those assets, right? So I mean, you can have huge discontinuous change in the world. You know, somebody mentioned a nuclear event earlier on, but people are still going to get up in the morning and go into the job that they had until they don't have it anymore. But the dynamism of how fast the underlying ecosystem can change and what those value propositions at the high end are, that's what's interesting. I do believe AI is going to come in and commoditize and blow the cost out of a lot of this stuff. And having a universal box will help if people understand what they can do with the data.
Yeah, I agree.
We
I think you
do
made that
need
here
to
today.
wrap
Oh,
this because we're past the top of the hour.
Sorry.
So this has been a great conversation. Thanks all, and thanks for everyone in the audience. And we will continue next week with a new theme for next month, which I don't think we've totally finalized. So you'll be surprised next week.
I guarantee there's going to be more AI discussion.
You think so?
Right.
or
You
impact.
want to bet on that?
In light of this meeting, we may have to
Okay.
replan.
No mas.
Dumbass.
All right. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks.
And we'll get the video out. Bye-bye.
Cheers all.
See ya.